The specialists Phil and Will are back, and today we are recapping the Traitors US Season 3, Episode number 5. That is a mouthful. Man, that's a lot. Will.
Why is that? Just Traitors Season 3, Episode 5? Why is that? I mean,
it just feels like a lot.
Show.
I don't know.
Like, that's how every show
No, because it's
formatted.
Survivor 47, Episode 1. That's easy.
I mean, it used to have to Survivor, Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, Episode 14 or 12, whatever.
I should have known you'd be a little bit pushier today based on your outfit here. Are you going to argue with me? Am I going to get a word in edgewise? What do you think here?
No, I don't think so.
Will, for anybody who's only listening and not watching, Will is currently wearing a blazer and a backwards baseball cap. He is dressed exactly like Boston Rob. Did you get that from Boston Rob? Like, that blazer looks exactly like half the ones he's been wearing.
I can't confirm nor deny, but you had mentioned on one of our earlier Traitors podcasts this season that, you know, I often wear a backwards hat, not all the time, but probably every other podcast, or I don't know. I wear one frequently. You say all you need is the blazer and you're Boston Rob. And so I thought, hey, let's complete the outfit tonight. And Boston Rob continues to be a force on the season. So why not do a nod to Boston Rob?
Yeah, seriously. I can't wait to see what you're going to be dressed as next time. You're going to come in like the Ivar kilt next time. I mean, obviously we won't know. Hopefully,
maybe I'll have Alan's sparkling suit from the church.
I like that. I like where your head's at here. So we'll talk about Boston Rob because I actually think he had an okay recovery tonight. But first, let's talk about something else here first, okay? And this is that neither one of us watch Big Brother. We watch Survivor. We watch the Traitors. We don't watch Big Brother. But let's talk.
We watch The Trust.
We did watch a Game of Greed.
Of Greed.
Yes. Deal or No Deal Island. Blake and I are ripping through season 2. I don't know if you've been watching, but let's just say this. Big Brother players are off limits to be traitors moving forward. Big Brother players are not good at being traitors. They're just flat out not. And to the point of Danielle tonight essentially pulled the exact same move. Now, she didn't do it at the round table, but after she looked like a sketch ball over at the challenge, she then gets in the car, realizes everybody's onto her, and is like, I think Caroline's a traitor. Like, doing exactly what Dan did to a T. And immediately we see at the end of this episode, Dylan going up to Caroline being like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's going to blow up in her face right away. What is the obsession with the Big Brother players of playing bad on this show? And Derek and Brittany really aren't playing bad. So it's when they're a traitor, they overthink it so much.
I mean, I don't want to blanket franchise that, you know, the entirety of Big Brother are just like bad at being traitors. That feels unfair, and it feels like we have far too small a sample size. There was no Big Brother traitor in the first season, was there?
Yeah, there was Cody. How do you do? Not very good.
Cody did not do very well. Yeah. I mean, also, I think being a traitor is a tough role. Danielle is doing exceptionally bad. And honestly, it's for very different reasons than why Dan did so badly. So I don't think they're all acting in some uniform way, and they are making mistakes. So I guess if you want to broaden your parameters, just like they just inherently are going to make mistakes, then sure. But to compare Dan and Danielle's game I don't think would be doing either of their games justice. I think they're both poor, but poor in extremely different ways. Honestly, probably opposite sides of the spectrum on what you want to be as a traitor. Dan was far too quiet, completely silent, and Danielle is drawing far too much attention to herself. So if you want to go with that route, sure. But being a traitor, I don't think is something that's super easy to do. It's something you have to be on all the time. We're just seeing these episodes. Like, again, I'm not trying to defend Danielle's game, but I don't want to, like, Phil, answer me this. If Derek was a traitor this season on season 3 of Traitors US, at season 3, episode 5, such a mouthful, Phil, would Derek be doing a better job than Danielle? Like, I think so. From what I've seen from Derek so far, he seems like he's got a great head on his shoulder for this type of game. Look, we haven't seen that. I could be wrong. It could be something too where the pressure of this role takes its toll, and then you are doing things that you wouldn't normally do. You wouldn't play optimally. So I don't want to just label that, but I see what you're saying. We are in a streak of Big Brother players not being the best traders.
I got to take a shot at Big Brother not players, but fans whenever I can. But the thing is too, it's the same defense mechanism. That's what got me when Danielle, you're right. Like, they're not playing the same game. They could be on opposite ends of the spectrum here. But for me, it was the same exact defense moment of, they're on to me. So I'm going to try to give them who I know for sure is a traitor, which in this moment was Caroline, of nobody's looking at Carolyn, so that's whose name I'm going to throw under the bus, right? And we see Dan do that with Phaedra, and it ends up blowing up in Dan's face. Now, granted, Danielle didn't do it when she got to the round table. She did it before that. She did it a little bit earlier. But what was Danielle even thinking at this challenge? I think that's the confusing part. Like, what Dan's game was much more calculated, and he just played it wrong. I think Danielle's game, she got a little too comfortable in the fact of I don't need to worry about having a shield because I can't get murdered. But they both had the same end result of throw another traitor under the bus. What was Danielle doing, though, at the shield challenge? Because to me, she couldn't have done any worse with that.
Yeah, and you just put a lot out there, Phil, so I want to respond to maybe not your question you ended on, because I again want to push back on Danielle and Dan doing the same thing, because even them targeting fellow traitors are done for two completely different reasons. Dan was being accused of being too quiet and not putting any names out. And so that when he finally was forced to do so, he needed to be correct and needed to have a baked in excuse as to why he waited so long. And his excuse was, I wasn't going to put anyone's name out until I was going to be 100% sure about it. We actually heard Boston Rob mimic that same sentiment tonight, which I think people are going to catch on to. If they watch season 2, they might say, wow, Dan said the exact same thing that Boston Rob said. And that Danielle, it seemed, she came to a conclusion earlier this episode that, okay, Boston Rob took out Bob the drag queen. I cannot trust him. I need to take him out. However, the only way I'm going to be able to take him out is if I do so with another traitor. The other traitor with me right now is Carolyn, who is not giving me what I want for a couple of reasons. Carolyn seems to be all over the. We've seen Danielle and Carolyn not be on the same page. It's like since the Dorinda murder in episode 1, where Carolyn's saying Dorinda would be a great shield because Dorinda has already drawn attention to herself. We should keep her in the game. And Danielle's like, you need to give me something more. I don't understand what you're saying. They don't seem to click strategically. And also Carolyn's a Survivor player. And Danielle raises the point that Boston Rob and Carolyn might be just in this together because they are part of the Survivor family. And so Danielle is saying, okay, I need a fellow traitor to take up Boston Rob. I can't do it with the traitor that I have, so I'm going to target Carolyn. I don't know if her targeting Carolyn was really the same. It didn't come from the same need that Dan was targeting Phaedra for. And that I don't know if it was in direct response to her having heat, because especially it was so immediately like after the challenge. I don't know if it had gotten to her that some players were suspicious of her behavior at the challenge. I think this was like a predetermined play that, hey, if I get into the car with the right people, and Carolyn not being in the car with me, or people that I trust, then I will peddle that name Carolyn, and hopefully it gets some traction. So I do think they're very different.
And then we'll talk about the challenge. I want to bring this up though, and here's my main question coming out of the logic here. She doesn't trust that she can work with Carolyn as a traitor, which I think is fair. Look, Carolyn's a wild card. You don't know what to expect. Jam Jam and Carson were perfect for Carolyn, but nobody else on that season could work with Carolyn, right? Like, she's very difficult to read, and that's a fair assumption. That's a fair statement. Why, though, if you want to get rid of Boston Rob and people are already pointing fingers at Boston Rob, why do you need to eliminate Carolyn to get rid of Boston Rob? Why don't you just make a push to get rid of Boston Rob?
That is a fair point, and that's what I was thinking during the episode, that you don't need your fellow traitor on board, especially if you are playing a good game, and a good game is having relationships with both traitors and faithful. And if you are in with some of the faithful members and you hear Boston Rob's name, which his name is being thrown around, it's not like you would even have to ignite this fire. You would just have to fan the wind so that it would spread, and that so Boston Rob could get the numbers to be banished. All she had to do was be like, oh, okay, Wes has maybe said a little bit about Boston Rob. I mean, we saw Ivar, Bon Ivar.
Exactly, but with an A. Exactly.
Right. That he has brought up Boston Rob's name, and he's playing a very open, honest game. He even told Boston Rob about the conversation with Wes, and we obviously will talk about that and how Boston Rob handled that and how Wes handled that. But it's not like there wasn't this opportunity where Rob's name is clean, especially coming off of the drag queen banishment. That's when you want to bring that attention onto Rob. So if that is Danielle's plan, she should have moved forward with that instead of going the roundabout method. I mean, we often see this on Survivor, Phil. It's like, okay, I want to target the head of the alliance, but I can't do it right now. So let's target one of their allies. And in Survivor, you may have some valid reasons for that. You may say, okay, that person has an idol, or that person has an immunity necklace, or that person has some sort of advantage, or that person maybe is too insulated to be loved in the tribe. But this person, he's a number or she's a number for that head of the snake. And so you might have to target somebody else. And we kind of critique that often on Survivor. Like, just go for the person you want to target. Yeah. Like, they force them to play their idol. Yeah, like, go slay the dragon. And that Danielle absolutely should have done that, because now she's going against both traitors, and it's already gotten back to Carolyn. It's like so quickly. So no, this is absolutely not in any way good gameplay. I don't even think I answered your question from about 5 minutes ago, which was,
here it is. Because Survivor Archivist, it gives us an excuse to throw this up. And what was she even doing at the challenge in the first place? Somehow throwing Carolyn under the bus was her second worst move of the episode. Look, I don't know Danielle's game, but when I talked to Blake about Danielle, he said she's essentially the Cirie Fields of Big Brother, the best to never win. That's where she's generally considered one of the best to never win. Maybe that's just Blake's opinion, because I know she played on older seasons. Maybe that's the truth. I don't know, but that's the information that I have about Danielle. And I also know that she wants Vesepia to get called for season 50 very badly. She tweets about it every single day at Jeff Probst. Those are the two things. We can
agree there.
Yeah, those are two things that I know about Danielle. So I don't want to be too hard, but this was illogical. The entire Shield challenge. It was absolutely illogical. And it, like, everybody knows you're smart. So even if you're not playing dumb, everybody knows you're not as dumb as what you're portraying right there. So what was the logic?
We heard her logic in that she wants to appear to be a faithful, and faithful help other faithfuls that are in need. And that the housewives have been getting murdered, and Dolores is somebody who is like the last housewife left at this point, which it seems early in the season to have only one housewife left. And that she was going to do something to help a fellow faithful, and that would buy her points with the faithful. However, that's completely the opposite of how you want to play. As a traitor, you want to appear as a faithful, and as a faithful, if you really are a faithful, you're going to play selfishly. And that's why you saw so many people during the challenge come up when they answered a riddle correctly. They would place their own face there and be like, sorry, hey, I'm being selfish. I need the shield. That's what faithful do. And so if you're pretending to be a faithful, be selfish. And so she did the exact opposite. Traitors can't be murdered. They don't need shields. And she kind of had a lapse in thinking there. And even if what she was doing was in some way something a faithful would do, even though it wasn't, but let's say it was. Let's say she was doing something that only a faithful would do. Even then, like, there's just no reason to ever draw attention to yourself. Just don't be the blade of grass, the tallest blade of grass. Sometimes it's squeaky wheel gets the grease, but this is tallest blade of grass gets cut down. Or the tallest nail gets hammered down. Is it the nail? It's the blade of grass.
The wheel gets oil.
Or gets the grease.
Really? I don't feel like you want grease. Isn't grease the buildup? Isn't oil the good thing? Oil.
I feel like it's squeaky wheel gets the grease, because especially with there's some kind of rhyming to that platitude.
Squeaky wheel.
It's like squeaky is the A and the grease.
One, yeah. I've heard it as gets the oil. You have it as gets the grease. It's funny.
Yeah. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, Phil.
There you go. I love that. But yeah, so I guess what was weird to me is, first of all, again, challenges are so much better than they were last season, because last season when they did this, they were running back and forth. Can you hear that? What music are they playing? Oh, I know.
I like the music. I always like the music one.
The music one itself was fine, but the purpose wasn't there. There was no real purpose. And this one is you can raise the money. That's the afterthought. It's really about who's going to get the shields. Danielle's logic, all she had to do to say to everybody was, hey, I'm not putting my face up yet because it's too early in the game. I got the second question right, or the third question right, whatever it is. I don't want to put my face up there yet, because then somebody's just going to take it down. And I want to make sure I'm one of the last faces up there. I'd rather get question 11 right. So because I got this one right, I'm going to help out one of my friends. And I'm going to hope that I can get one later. And remember, Derek, if I put your face up there, which she actually put up Dolores. So it's like, Dolores, if I put your face up there, if you get one right later, put me up as the other face next to you if your face is still there. But she didn't say that. And it felt like maybe she was thinking along those lines in some way, shape, or form, but that's not what came out. And then it almost didn't click with her until people started saying, aren't you worried that you can actually be eliminated? And what really
when she just stood there and froze.
Yeah. And what really screwed her more than anything was when she takes Derek's face off and then puts Derek's face back. It's like everybody now is like, what are you doing? And then when they ask her, she freezes, and it's like, Danielle, you're not helping yourself right now. And maybe she can recover. I mean, obviously, this game is there's so many people, there's so many different reasons. The way I am seeing this, though, as we're coming out of this episode, they know Danielle is a traitor. They know Boston Rob is a traitor, but they are running into the classic problem that we've talked about with the traitors before, which is this. You're actually in better shape to get rid of faithfuls once you know who the traitors are, because it reduces the prize pot. You already know who the traitors are. Don't give them a chance to recruit, because there was no recruitment after Bob the Drag Queen was eliminated, and it wasn't announced. And normally the recruitments are announced. So because there was no recruitment, you know who two of the people are. Why get rid of them now? Take a shot at Nikki, take a shot at Sierra, and maybe then start to say, okay, we got to get rid of Boston Rob. We got to get rid of Danielle. But everybody's always going to be on board to get rid of those two people. So I feel like that is the game that we are currently watching play out, which is why Danielle's name never even came up tonight by the time they got anywhere near the round table.
Yeah, this was another reason we talked through the nail in the coffin twist. I don't even know if it was a twist, just kind of a format break. And how I didn't really love it for a bunch of reasons, but one of the reasons, it felt like you're just giving the traitors like a layup. You're just giving them free suspicion for that they did not earn. And that the decision this episode being between Nikki and Sierra, and honestly, Sierra barely got any votes. She only got the one vote from Nikki. It just felt like, okay, we're just helping the traitors last as long as they can at the expense of people who did nothing wrong. Really, they by no fault of their own, they got picked to be a decoy to Jeremy getting murdered. And now Nikki's gone for that. And not that I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we lost Nikki. She was my favorite. Not like I'm weeping when Tony went home, but it does feel a little like, okay, we just kind of delayed getting into the meat of, okay, we have suspicion on Rob, we have suspicion on Danielle. How are they going to deflect? And this deflection felt so easy. And honestly, Danielle's name never really even came up. No. So,
and you know, it's kind of like with if you're writing a sitcom, the characters begin and end at the same point, right? Like there's a problem or a joke that comes up throughout, and then by the end of the episode, everything goes back to the status quo generally. Like if you watch Seinfeld, Friends, it always goes back to the status quo. When you're doing a drama, it's generally, this is the starting point, plot points, we get to an end point, things have changed because we're moving forward, unless it's a serial, or not a serial, episodic. That would be different. But like if you're doing a serial, like, or, whatever.
Yeah, or procedural.
Like procedural, yeah. But if you're doing a show like The Traitors, the story is supposed to progress. The problem with this episode was the episode started with Boston Rob's pretty sketchy, isn't he? And it ended with Boston Rob's pretty sketchy, isn't he? It's the same beat at both points of the episode. And that's kind of what one of my biggest problems with this format of the Traitors, and why, look, I understand there's some people who argue part of the strategy of the game is to be able to get rid of faithfuls, even if you know they're faithfuls, because maybe you're trying to help yourself out, whatever it is. But it's why I do think there needs to be a little bit of a turn, a little bit of a change to the format, and even if it's just a minor tweak, because we shouldn't have episodes beginning and ending with the exact same plot point. And like you said, it's delaying the inevitable, but we could have the exact same thing take place next week. Boston Rob, they could just say, look, we don't want to get rid of Boston Rob. Let's get rid of Sierra instead.
Yeah,
let's end next week with the same thing.
Let's clear the coffin suspects just to be sure, because if we move off of Sierra and then target somebody else, I don't know who the target would be. Let's say they target Tom. They like, Tom acted weird, man. He made a weird face in the car. And Tom gets the votes. It's gonna be like, well, man, Sierra is still lingering out there as that last person in the car. We never checked. So let's go back and check Sierra. And it's like, man, the Traitors got these 2 free passes. It felt like from a segment that did not do all that much in other areas as well. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you. So it'll be interesting. And now Carolyn's name is out there. Brittany shot down that there's any chance it could be Carolyn. Dylan is telling Carolyn, so he really doesn't think it's Carolyn. Do you think, though, that this is going to put any amount of pressure on Carolyn? It looks like in the preview for next week, she's screaming at somebody at the round table. Do
It
you think that
seems like
Carolyn's in trouble?
it does feel like it's Carolyn versus Danielle next week. So, well, this might have been kind of a setup episode where we're still just kind of marinating in this coffin fiasco.
Mhm.
It seems like it comes out that Danielle is going to put the full court press on Carolyn. Carolyn's going to have to respond, and we're going to see Traitor versus Traitor again.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least that's what it seems.
And I almost wonder if by having 4 traitors, is this the problem you're going to run into? Like, if they were to do 4 traitors next season, would they always run into a problem of just traitors taking on traitors? Because we really haven't seen the traitors take each other on in past seasons. Yes, Dan goes after Phaedra last season, but like we've already talked about in this episode, it was because he was being targeted so aggressively and he knew he had to pinpoint a absolute traitor. Do you think that by having 4, there's too many cooks in the kitchen there, and there's too many voices, and people are just going to go after each other because, oh, you threw a little bit of suspicion at me. You threw a little bit of suspicion at me. I can't trust you. Do you think that they get worried about that and this would happen every time and 3 might actually be the perfect number?
It depends what you want out of it, because just because traitors are going after each other, does that necessarily mean like that's a bad thing?
Because I think it's more entertaining.
Last week's episode was one of the best episodes of the show.
Yeah,
it was super entertaining, and we're sitting here complaining that we just had this kind of deciding between 2 faithful. We never felt the real threat of a traitor being banished here. And next week we think we will, and we're probably going to be more excited after next week. At this time next week, we'll be talking about either Carolyn or Danielle going home, and that's more interesting. Now, you can't have that be the entire show either, where it's just constantly traitors going after each other every single week and then recruiting, and then that becomes the whole game. I want to be the sole traitor. There is a balance to it, but I don't know that 4 versus 3. Maybe probability wise, you're more likely to go after a traitor when there's 4 than 3. For a lot of reasons. One, just there's another one to go after. So there's an increased chance that you don't click with one of your traitors, and splitting the money at the end. If there's more traitors, you're going to want to split it with fewer people. So that gives you an added incentive. So I don't know. I think it probably more depends on the people. Like if Boston Rob and Bob the Drag Queen were traitors with just Danielle or just Carolyn, and Bob the Drag Queen says, I think it's one of the 3 new guys, I don't think that's going to change Boston Rob's behavior whatsoever last episode. So
yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk about then. Let's go back to the beginning here, because now we've talked through kind of Danielle's logic or lack thereof and some of these other elements. But let's talk about this Wes conversation right off the bat, because you had mentioned this earlier, and Wes, it comes out to Boston Rob from Ivar, of all people. I love that it's Ivar. Ivar and Chriselle right now, I think, are pretty obviously faithfuls if you're playing this game. And so Ivar comes out and says to Boston Rob, Wes is throwing your name out as, if somebody says 100% traitor, the only way they would know is if they are 100% traitor. Boston Rob goes and approaches Wes on this. And what I loved about this is 2 experts of reality TV who don't get their emotions up if they don't need to. And the 2 of them were so stone cold the entire time they had this conversation. But what do you think about this? Did either one of them come out on top here? Do you think Boston Rob is still scared of Wes in some way? It seems like Wes and Derek are going after Boston Rob next week, but that was Derek's idea. What do you think about the way this was handled?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever got to hear from Boston Rob, like what his thoughts are on Wes after this conversation took place, because Wes immediately said, no, I did not do that. Like, just no. That wasn't me. And then I forget exactly how he explained it. I think he meant like he had a phrase he kept repeating.
He said he was complimenting. He said he was saying, I was complimenting that you would go after a traitor like that, because it's not something I would do, because it could put you out as a traitor.
Or that he was like explaining to Bob how something worked, like saying, oh, Bob was saying there's no way you could know for sure. And Wes just pointed out, well, you could know. Yeah. I'm not saying Boston Rob does know. I'm just saying you theoretically, I never think it would be Boston Rob. Absolutely not. 100% faithful. But theoretically, you could 100% know if you are a traitor, which is, not what happened. Wes absolutely threw Boston Rob's name out there and put heat on him. And Wes played it cool. I don't know. I mean, whether Boston Rob believes Wes or not, I don't know if there's anything Wes could have said in that situation. At that point, the cat's out of the bag, and all you can do is just don't give him any more reason to suspect that you're lying. So, I mean, just definitely don't own it, though. Don't be like, yeah, man, sorry. You can't do that, or else there's no escaping Boston Rob's fury. Like, he's going to come after you. So lie and keep the lie going best you can. But it seems like Wes and Derek have kind of they're going to put their heads together and rally some votes to take out Boston Rob.
And what's working in Wes's favor is it's in Boston Rob's best interest to keep Wes because of the theory that one of the three guys who came in late is a traitor. So it's in Boston Rob's best interest to keep the numbers high because now there's 3 rather than 2. And if Wes were to go home, now people are going to say, well, it wasn't Wes. Derek's been pretty quiet. It's probably Boston Rob. We already are thinking Boston
And even
Rob.
if you get people like onto Derek, they'll be like, okay, it's not Wes or Derek. If they both go, then it's like, okay, Rob, your time's finally up here, buddy.
Yeah. So I feel like it was as well handled. I feel like Boston Rob approaching Wes in that way. I think Boston Rob, you're seeing his social game on display and he's taking advantage of a lot of people who don't know his gameplay. Chriselle was one of them when he went up to Chriselle and he had that conversation and Chriselle is telling him, I really think it's Nikki, and Boston Rob 100%. I won't tell anybody. I got your back. Literally you could watch every episode Boston Rob is in. He's probably said that to 80% of the players he's been on an island with. Even in Deal or No Deal Island, he said it to everybody except for the one lady who got 3rd place, whose name I can't remember. He pretty much said it to everybody else. Amy? Was it Amy?
I don't know.
You know who I'm talking about. She couldn't get through the maze.
No.
I think it was Amy.
Was it Amy?
Either way, doesn't matter. It's like the only one he didn't say it to. These are golden Boston Rob lines. And then you have Carolyn, who has never handled somebody like Boston Rob in a game setting. And I think what's really fascinating to watch Boston Rob and Carolyn is it really shows like that to get into Survivor a little bit. It shows the difference in the new era casting of Survivor. You will get some villains. You will get some over-the-top characters. You don't really get people who are purposefully confrontational on Survivor anymore. Rome was obviously an example of somebody who was, but even Q wouldn't be purposefully confrontational just for the sake of being confrontational. It seemed like a lot of his was in confessionals and the way he would talk, but like, oh, and I think I froze, maybe not, but it's like somebody like Boston Rob, he is going to be purposefully confrontational with people, and then he'll try to play damage control. And I think he really did the damage control where Carolyn's going, oh my God, my head is spinning. How can I trust you? You have to understand why I don't trust you. But she's also then like, well, I don't have a choice but to trust him. So what do I do? And so I think Boston Rob really rebounded nicely. I think he's doing about as best as he can after making that move last week that some people were calling a great move. We were saying it, making it very obvious he's a traitor. But at the end of the day, you get to that final fire ceremony, whatever it's called. Boston Rob is being eliminated from the game at that ceremony, no matter what, unless there are 3 traitors left in the game and they literally can't eliminate each other. That's the only way. Like,
but they can.
But they can. That's true. That's true. I guess if they eliminated and got where it was like 3 traitors, 0 faithfuls, I think Alan would probably call it. I think he'd be like, you guys are done. We all
Or
know.
if you want to vote someone off, I mean, that's what we saw with Ari and Sari, that Sari made the push to vote Ari off so that she could have the money herself in season 1.
Yeah. Great move. Love that so much.
So I don't know. I think they'd say, do you want to vote again? And then,
but there were still faithfuls left. What I'm saying is if there were no faithfuls left, I think they would.
Yeah, but you could just opt not to vote. I don't know. It would be a funky situation. I definitely would see it. But yeah.
Boston Rob, I feel like, I mean, do you disagree with that? Like, there's no way Boston Rob that people let him get through the final ceremony, no matter how he plays the game. So it's a losing game for him, no matter what.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I don't even think that's based so much on his gameplay, even though his gameplay has been pretty aggressive and flashy. It's just the reputation that he has. Like, I can't believe, first of all, if he makes it that far, I would be surprised.
Yeah, I agree. The only way he's making it that far is if they're protecting him purposefully to get rid of other faithfuls.
But I don't know if you can still hear me. Am I still?
No, I think you might have froze there. I think if you've been hearing me the whole time, I think you might have froze there. So
okay. I want to commend Rob because we did bash him for his move last week. Mm-hmm. And not that I think he can recover or that he's going to be okay. We just said, but that he's not in as hot of a seat as I thought. I mean, I thought there was a chance he would go home this week.
I agree.
So kudos to him. I also think the game is kind of unraveling in front of him, and he's benefiting from Danielle's miscues, both of them. The fact that she put attention on herself and that she's targeting Carolyn, that works both ways. That puts heat on Danielle for throwing out a name, but it also puts heat on Carolyn because Carolyn's the name that's being thrown out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is what you do in modern day Survivor. Once you make a move or have any attention on yourself, you want to kind of float away. You want to go into the background. This is what Gabler did. One of the Survivor greats, a Survivor winner, took his shot at Ellie and then moved into the background and came out to win in the end. So I maybe about half the credit goes to Rob for playing it cool, and then half the credit goes to this cast just kind of falling apart too. And the coffin twist really helped.
The coffin twist has made a huge difference. Like that, it's having a bigger difference than anybody, I think, even maybe the producers would have predicted.
But maybe not though, because and I'm saying maybe not to the producers predicting that, because I do think the producers want the traitors to last. Maybe not all of them last to the end. That's no fun. But they don't want their traitors going back to back to back to back and getting caught and just completely falling on their face. Or then you kind of do have to do a reset of the whole show and your whole story. Like if you're at the end and it's like 3 new recruits, it just doesn't feel as cohesive as a season. So I do think you want to include, like they want to throw the traitors some bones when they can. And the coffin twist absolutely was that. It was helping them out.
Yeah, because I do wonder, like, especially now, we didn't get a recruitment, and now even if somebody goes next week, you're 2 with what, 12, 13 people left. I can never keep track of how many people there are on these seasons, but
I have no clue.
Way too many people. But maybe they don't want to do as many recruitments. Maybe they felt like the recruitment portion of the game was becoming a little broken, and so they're trying something else out where they don't recruit, and maybe they will only recruit if there's 2 people left at a certain number, or if they get to 1 person left at like final 8, then they'll recruit. But it seems like they're trying to avoid recruiting, so maybe this did work out in the way that they wanted to. And I will say, like, between season 2 and season 3, I think this season is much more entertaining than season 2. I really do. I think that so far, even the players that I don't really know, I'm shocked, like you said earlier, that there's only 1 housewife left. That's insane. But even the players I don't really know, I feel like are bringing it. Some of their stunt casting choices, like Dylan, like Sam, like Tom, I think those people are working. Like Ivar is working just as well as John did last year, maybe even better. Like I am enjoying watching who we're watching. And so maybe doing the shields, having the shields be a more prominent part of the challenges, and doing a twist like the coffin twist so early in the game, maybe it actually caused more drama, which is making for better TV and not just as run-of-the-mill basic episodes.
I think last season was good too. They're similar in that the traitors were not very successful. Yeah. Like Parv and Dan last season were targeted and had some heat pretty much from the get-go, it felt like. Mm-hmm. And part of that's because of the reputations, part of that because they didn't play it very well. This season, we lost a traitor this season earlier than we lost a traitor last season.
Yeah.
And then now it feels like 3 out of the 3 of the remaining traitors have had their name tossed out.
Yeah.
Like Boston Robs was one of the 3 names tonight at the round table. Danielle, I don't know if anyone said, I think Danielle's a traitor, but it's like Danielle's acting weird.
They all said she was sketchy. Yeah.
Yeah,
like they all know there's something up.
Which that's like, if someone's acting sketchy, why are you telling me that? It's because you think they're a traitor. So we can kind of put words in their mouth. And then Carolyn's name got tossed out after the challenge. So it's like all 3 of them. There's no one playing like a clean game. And not that saying Carolyn messed up. Like, hey, if your own traitor goes after you, there's not a lot you can do. They know your identity and they want you gone. But it doesn't feel like this group is going to last that long.
No, I agree. And I think Carolyn will still end up being okay because I think enough people are looking out for her. And I think that if Danielle were to go, if it is Carolyn versus Danielle next week, which everything is pointing towards that's what's happening at the round table, everybody knows that Danielle threw Carolyn's name out. So, or enough people will know by the time the round table comes around at least. And I think if Carolyn pushes back and says, no, Danielle, you're doing this because you know you're a traitor, they're all going to vote for Danielle because they're going to suspect Danielle more than they're going to suspect Carolyn. Danielle is going to end up being a traitor. And I think most people are going to turn around and say, you know what? I don't think Carolyn was a traitor. I think that Danielle got desperate and tried to point the finger at somebody that we all don't think is a traitor, because nobody believes it. I mean, Dylan doing what he did, and Dylan's had a good read. Like, what about, like, because Dylan had a straight vote for Gabby tonight. Like, he's putting his neck out there over and over again. So I think the move for Dylan to do what he did in this episode, I just thought it was interesting. Like, he definitely took a back seat compared to the first couple episodes, but he still had his moves, and he's telling Carolyn, and that's how we know when Danielle was telling Brittany didn't believe it at all. We don't actually see Danielle or Brittany tell Dylan. We just hear Dylan tell Carolyn. So this is spreading through the house. But it seems like most people in this house do not believe that Carolyn is a traitor. And if Danielle ends up getting sent packing as a traitor, I think Carolyn comes back as, yeah, we think you're faithful, you're clean.
Yeah, no, part of the episode tonight that was so funny was when Danielle mentioned Carolyn's name. People were like, no.
She's not good enough. That's what they were saying.
Brittany was like, don't see it. I'm sorry. And then she eventually said, maybe this has got legs. Then Dylan was like, no way. No way. Or whoever in the car was also like, no way. So that is great for Carolyn. No one expects, like, even thinking meta about the producers and the production of the show, like, the producers would not trust Carolyn to be a traitor. Like, come on. Like, that's almost the sentiment they're giving, which is kind of funny. And again, Carolyn got dealt a great hand here for being a traitor, and let's see how she navigates it. It seems like she does come to the forefront next week. That stray vote, I think it does. It helps you and it hurts you. It helps you because I think it cements to other faithful that you are faithful. I think that's what it does, because when there's a dog pile onto one person, like with Nikki, and that one person turns out to be a faithful, you can confidently say, well, look, all the traitors voted that way. And then you can look at, okay, who didn't vote that way? We talked about this last week a little bit. And Dylan didn't even vote for Nikki. So he's probably not a traitor. He didn't think either one of them were faithful or were a traitor. So he was not one of those votes. And you want to look at now, when that many people vote for Nikki, it's not that telling, because you can't narrow it down. It's not like there were 8 people and you can look, okay, it's got to be one of these 8. It's like the whole group. So it's not as informative. But I think where it hurts Dylan, and this hurts you and the traitors when you do this in any shape or form, is just being like a sole person doing anything.
Yeah.
Whether it's doing something weird at a challenge, or throwing a stray vote, or even tossing out a name, or doing something at breakfast, like calling, hey, I have a theory. Like, just don't do anything on your own. Like, I wish you would almost have said, like, gotten someone else and been like, let's do this together, because whenever you're the sole person doing a one weird thing, you just don't want that heat. You just don't want that attention.
I think the reason why this will end up working for him is because Nikki goes and Nikki was a faithful. I think this will work for him because if you're a traitor and everybody's willing to pile on a faithful, you're going to pile on the faithful with them because you don't want to stick out like the sore thumb. If you're a faithful and you don't think somebody's a traitor and they end up being a faithful, like, a faithful would be willing to stick out like a sore thumb. It might not be the best gameplay, but they're more willing. A traitor is never going to be like, no, you guys are so stupid. It's not Nikki. They're going to be just happy to go along with the fact that it's Nikki. So I do think that's helping him for sure.
Right. But by the same token, we get into these arguments all the time. It's like, okay, well then because that would be such a faithful thing to do, then wouldn't a traitor do that?
Is Dylan Efron that good? Is he that good?
That's what we always hear. Like, well, you're acting like a faithful, which means you might be acting like a traitor, which means actually you might be and then you just get caught in the, like, it's like, which hand is it? Am I right hand or left hand? And it's like, well, you would put it in the right, but you knew I'd put it in the right. So you put it in the left. And then it's like, you can go endless with that kind of thinking. So I see what you're saying, but that always gets thrown back in people's faces on this show.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
I mean, it's essentially the Princess Bride, right? Which one has the poison? They both have the poison, but I have built up tolerance to the poison. That's what the traitors is. Like, have you built up enough tolerance so that you don't get snipped here? Because people are going to overthink it. And now that we're into the 3rd season, maybe you are thinking a little bit along those lines of, is Dylan Efron just like running circles around us as a traitor right now? Like, maybe you are starting to think that.
Yeah, I mean, what Dylan has going for him most is something that he has not done by his own doing. Yeah, maybe you could say he has, but like the alliance with Boston Rob is keeping Dylan in the game right now. Especially the more you prove yourself as faithful, the more likely it is you're going to get murdered. If there's not any chance that you'll get heat on you as someone who could potentially be a traitor, then you have no value to the traitors, and so they will kill you. And so even though Dylan's playing a very faithful game, it's Boston Rob wants to keep Dylan around. That's, I think, really benefiting Dylan's game.
What do you think about this from Survivor Archivist? Dylan would be an incredible recruit for Carolyn/Rob if Danielle goes next week. Do you think that Dylan is a good recruit, or do you keep using him as a faithful shield?
I mean, we saw this he is the Peter of this season. And Peter was so against the traitors, he turned down the recruitment. I don't think you would want that to happen. You don't want to pick someone who's so faithful that they're not going to accept your recruitment. Although I think Dylan probably would. I mean, that is what you want to recruit. That's who you want to recruit. You want to recruit someone who's super, super faithful. I would recruit Ivor.
I agree. Honestly, I would recruit Ivor or I would recruit Tom because those are two people nobody's looking at all.
Sam. No one's looking. I mean, Sam. I would recruit Sam or Ivor.
Yeah.
And those would be, I think the whoever the recruitment candidates are also your murder candidates. I think they're the same, one and the same, which is funny.
Yeah,
I agree. You want to have join your team is the people you'd want to eliminate from the show.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because that's why they went for Pete last season, right? They wanted Pete because they were terrified that Pete was going to get them and figure it out, so they wanted to like neutralize him. But then once he turned it down, they just murdered him.
Yeah, no, that was dumb from Pete.
Yeah.
I remember I would say, the only thing with recruitments is that they build up this suspense of will they accept, will they not? And it's like, all right, everyone's going to accept. Come on. Like anyone who's watched these shows, played these games, like it's fun to be in the know and on the traitor side. And when he turned that down, I was shocked. I was like, and it's stupid. Like now you are definitely not winning the game.
You absolutely get murdered the next time. Yeah. And then Ryan Tran, I think these are another good name here, at least one. Recruiting Gabby or Chrishell could be interesting. I think Chrishell would be interesting at this point because Chrishell is so blatantly a faithful after the breakdown. I will say that this season, it feels like there's much more obvious faithfuls than there were last season. I feel like the Housewives, people were kind of up in the air. I don't really know. I feel like this, like Chrishell, Sam, Tom, Ivar.
I don't think Tom is that clean as what you're saying. I think I would
really. I don't feel like anybody's looking at Tom. I feel like Tom is just.
He got some heat. Remember, we had 3 hours in a row early, which is still 60% of what we've seen of this season.
Yeah,
and that was 2 weeks ago at this point. So I think you might be forgetting, but Tom had some heat on him in those first 3 episodes.
I think people just don't like him, and even tonight he says to Chrishell, like, "I know you don't like me, but good job
something like that." Yeah, yeah, and Chrishell gets like, "I think Tom's a traitor." You only get to banish one person a week, so
yeah, that's true. Well, so let's talk. We didn't bring it up. What do you think about the murder of Robin? Is this a good move?
I thought it wasn't. I think Robin's one of the more outspoken people in terms of throwing names out there, and even if she is getting close, which I don't think she was getting all that close, was she?
She wasn't.
Like, yeah, wasn't she team? She was team Nikki or Sierra very hard. I remember. Again, I would have killed Ivor or Sam or even Chrishell. Like, kill the people that aren't making noise and that are the most likely to be faithful. Robin was someone. Remember, Robin's name came up in those first 3 episodes as someone who could potentially be a traitor. She defended herself very well, but you want those people that have had heat on them previously because we say, remember when Robin, we tried to vote her and then she survived that vote. We got rid of Tony. I forget who it was that she went. Maybe it was what was his name? Ellis?
Wells.
I think it was Wells versus sure. I think it was Wells versus Robin. And you want to keep the people that have survived roundtable banishments like that, where they've gotten votes, because then you can always put the heat back. You know what? Remember that Wells vote? We were wrong. The other person was Robin. We kind of forgot about her. I just don't know why getting rid of Robin was like, I don't know why it made sense. You don't want to get rid of people who are vocal. Get rid of the quiet people.
It didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand the Robin boot. I mean, unless they're just trying to wipe out all of the Housewives now, only Dolores is left. I mean, I don't know what the reasoning was behind this. I felt like it was random. Carolyn didn't want to do it. Really, Danielle didn't want to do it either. Boston Rob really pushed for this. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see who they murder next week, because Carolyn, we hear in the soundbite for next time on, she says the only ones I want to murder are the two of you. And so it will be interesting to see, like, do they throw her a bone and say, Carolyn, who do you want to get rid of? We will let you do the murder this week. Or do you think that Rob and Danielle will want to keep all the control? Because the way they're playing right now, Derek has a line tonight, which makes me think he could be in trouble. Derek says, if he doesn't get rid of me, Boston Rob's dead next time. And I wonder if the editors almost left that soundbite in because Derek could potentially be murdered to start off the day. But I don't know. Like, who do you think they kill?
But we already talked about Rob not wanting Wes and Derek to be eliminated.
Yeah,
Whether
that's true.
via murder or banishment. He's going to want to keep them in the game. But you know what we've also talked about is Rob not really caring to play a winning game because he knows he can't win and just wants to do fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that he had no problem throwing Tony under the bus, had no problem murdering Jeremy. And that might have been for some ulterior motives and outlasting Survivor legends. But he could say, screw it. I want to get Derek or Wes out. I just think it would be more, if he does go that route, it'd be way more likely for him to target Wes than it would be for him to target Derek. However, if you target Wes, I think you are sending Ivor a very loud signal of Boston Rob, traitor. Like, I think Ivor is smart enough to put those pieces together. So I don't think it will be Wes or Derek. I think, again, Sam.
Yeah.
Or Ivor could actually be a really smart choice.
I think Chrishell would be a good one to murder too, because Chrishell played that so emotionally. She was so upset afterwards. Just get rid of her. Everybody knows she's not a traitor, so just get rid of her.
I don't think they're going to get rid of. Wait, no.
She's selling Sunset.
Okay, you knew where I was going with that.
Yeah, I knew.
She's not a housewife. Yeah, I think Dolores is now very safe because
I agree.
Part of me thinks that they wanted to get rid of another housewife just so that there's one left, and then they could just have this like default suspicion, being like, you know what, we lost 3 housewives here, all murdered too. I think Dorinda. What was
Dorinda was murdered.
Avia or Avi.
Ian was murdered.
Ian, and then then Robin.
Mm-hmm.
All murdered housewives, and so that they could just look to Dolores and say, maybe it's her. I don't know.
And that's fair. So yeah, now Dolores is probably one of the safer people coming into next week. I have the list of people here on my phone.
You don't want to murder. I don't want to murder Dolores. She's someone you could easily throw heat on. Who are the people with shields?
The shields were Dolores was one. So she did end up with a shield. And then who was the other one who ended up getting the shield?
Brittany?
No, it wasn't Brittany.
Derek? Did Derek's?
No, Derek got his taken away right at the end. Oh, Sierra. Sierra got the other one because Sierra went and she pulled Derek's off at the very end to put her.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, I mean, I think he goes Sam or Ivor.
Yeah, I think those are both fair. And if you wanted to, I mean, if you're going like
is Ivor too much heat though? Because he mentioned Rob, like he said.
That's a good point. Because if you go with Ivor, I was the one who brought it up at the round table and said, "Rob, I think it's you."
So you probably it could be like this is a name that's out there, which I like the gameplay from Ivor actually, and being super upfront and just saying, "Here are the names that are out there." I'm not saying what I believe. I'm not putting anyone's name out. I'm just informing everyone. Here are the names in talks. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of asked Boston Rob, like, "Hey, if you want to defend yourself, go ahead." And he's like, I'm not even saying it is you. I'm just saying this is what I've heard. Yeah, that's a good move.
I agree. And I agree. Yeah, so I think Ivor's safe. Sam's probably in no trouble.
Yeah. Sam or Chrishell.
Chrishell would be such a good pick because it's just known she's a faithful, and people would be like, "Wow."
Or if they want to put it on Dylan, they could kill Gabby.
Yeah, that's true. Because Gabby was the only person who wrote down Gabby's name was Dylan. Yeah, so maybe they could point some fingers at Dylan for sure.
And then Dylan will be like, "That's what the traitors want you to think."
Yeah, exactly. But because Carolyn. But then would Carolyn push back on that and be like, "No, I want to defend Dylan at this point"? and I don't want Dylan to get suspicion.
I don't. Yeah, that would have to come from Danielle, and I don't think Boston Rob or Carolyn would want Dylan to potentially get banished.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot going on here. A lot going on. I want to bring up two things here that are kind of looking towards the future, getting a little bit more meta. But Kevin Hernandez says, if you watch the Traitors before playing, couldn't you surmise that the last person to come to breakfast is a faithful? So they've been better this year, haven't they?
Well, this was a problem. Like, it wasn't a problem, but it was like season 1, the last 3 people to come in were always faithful.
Yep.
In season 2, they put some traitors in the last group. They did.
Yeah.
And I believe so far this season they've done
They
that.
haven't had people come in solo at the end. They've had them come in at least in a pair of 2. However, there has pretty much been at least 1 or 2 of the people that are coming in that last group are faithful. So if you really pay attention to that, you might be able to start to determine, okay, you know, who's constantly coming in near the end, because that might just be that's because they're a traitor, or they're a faithful. They're constantly coming in.
Right. No, there is a way to game that, but because in season 2 they mixed it up and they did have traitors in that final group. Have they not done that at all this season? I mean, again, we're only 5 episodes in.
No, sure they did tonight, because it was who came in last? It was Rob came in first. Didn't Carolyn come in very late, or maybe it was Rob?
She came in late, but she wasn't last. We were down to 3. I think it was between Gabby.
It was
Gabby,
Tom, and
Sam.
It was Gabby, Tom, and whoever went. No, not Gabby, Tom. Gabby, Sam, and whoever went.
Right. And so they didn't do it tonight, but they have done that in the past. Something so like you can't really look that far into it because they have
it's not as easy to game
that
anymore.
Trend. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Trav Herod here, he says, I'm just wondering in season 4 if no Survivor or Big Brother players will be made traitors after they've had traitors from those shows all 3 seasons. Do you think that it's become too predictable? Like everybody's really just going to be looking at the Big Brother and Survivor players at this point? Like, how do you think that they will approach that in the future? It seems like it's working this season, but the Survivor players are going to have a target on their back no matter what if they're a Survivor winner. That's how it feels. Like even Sandra last season, people are like, she played such a good game. Sandra never had a chance to win last season. She was never going to be allowed to get through that final fire thing. So
yeah, no, it's a good question. You probably have to take a break, or it becomes something where you cast enough where it's like you don't know which one. If there are 5 Survivor players next season, so we had 4 this season. If they up the count, and if they find that players that come from competition shows are better than the ones that come from the Bravo docu shows, then they can get away with it easier. But if it is like still the same ratio of franchises, then you probably have to take a break from at least one of Survivor or Big Brother.
Yeah, you can't have both of them start again. Like it's been Big Brother and Survivor, at least one of each as the starting traitors every day. They get recruited, but you can't have it be. Although I guess Parvati was recruited, technically.
True. That's true.
Because it was Phaedra and Dan, and they picked.
But are people going to remember that?
No,
probably not.
No, they're not. You're right.
I mean, the best way to do it, and this won't happen because it's a TV show, is you cast enough great people and then you randomize it.
Yeah.
And you don't let anyone game it at all.
Yeah.
But they'll never do that.
No, they want to create the drama that they want to create. That's why they have to sit down with Alan beforehand, right? Like they already know where they want to go with it for sure. Is there anything else, or we covered everything? I feel like we covered.
Well, we didn't talk through the challenge in that much detail, but these challenges are so much more interesting when players are playing for immunity, and we just can't be happier that that's kind of a format change this season.
Absolutely. The money is still there. That can be a background thing, but the fact that the shields are constant, and that was I felt like that was a creative way today of you put your face up, but then your face can be taken down, but you can still get more answers correct. But the first time you get one wrong, you have no chance anymore. Like I thought that was a good back and forth dynamic there. I like that.
Were you solving the riddles there?
I was really good. I was better than Bob for sure. When he went shield instead of gold.
I mean, that one was like
so easy.
The easiest one.
I know. Poor guy. Bob Harper is too kind for this game.
I guess one note on that challenge, like what if you had taken, let's say, Compass down for riddle 1 and then broken it, it would have been gold, even though it wasn't the right
exactly
answer.
what my wife asked. She asked the exact same question. What happens then? Because if you do it, it's like, well, that's not the correct answer. And I almost feel like what was happening is that's why Alan was asking ahead of time, what is the correct answer? And they were saying it out loud, and then they would cut to them getting ready to throw it. I feel like if they said the wrong answer, Alan would have just cut it before they threw it on the ground, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Which
but
is obviously very
then
telling.
you know it's the correct answer for a future question.
But they were so easy anyway.
Unless you just skip
yeah, maybe he had 10 in front of him,
or
and maybe he picked 7 of the 10.
Or they're just all they're all black, and then once you pick it, there's a couple options. Once you pick it, you are then given a black, or because we're not seeing the word break ever, right? It could just be blank ones.
Yeah.
Like no matter what you pick, we are going to give you a new urn.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
true. You're doing it
down.
for the showmanship. That's a good point.
And then you still don't know the answer because the urn they give you is blank, and it could be filled with black or yellow.
Mm-hmm.
That probably would be the smoothest way to do that. Or you could say, okay, we're just going to load in our one yellow one per question. Everyone turn around. You send out like 4 or 5 people at once so you can't hear footsteps. And then one person switches out the correct answer with a yellow one.
Yeah.
That feels like it's a little more to do. And I think the first one's probably right.
And that's why you come to the specialist, because you get behind the scenes notes of how the cake is made, right?
Yeah, because you wouldn't ever allow that situation to happen where they smash yellow one.
No, they smash compass, and it's like, well, it's actually gold, but
yeah, but here's your $2,500.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That is a good point. All right, that's it. So yeah, we'll be back again next Thursday night, as always. If you haven't checked out Deal or No Deal Island, Blake and I have been recapping that. Will, you've been watching Deal or No Deal Island or no?
I have not.
It's pretty good, man. It's just fun. It's just like a silly little game, and I know we liked it last season. I liked
it too. I didn't dislike it. I don't know if I'll probably get to it at some point. It doesn't feel as appointment viewing as the Traitors. I think the Traitors I get like excited for, and there's a reason I haven't even watched Deal or No Deal Island this season. It's not something I was like craving or waiting for. I'll get to it though. Severance is out.
I know.
Did you watch Severance?
That? I haven't watched. We finally got Apple TV, so now I can actually watch season 1, and now I actually will watch it because now at least I don't have to wait 3 years or whatever it was in between seasons.
Yeah, I would watch season 1, then I would watch season 1 again, and then I'd watch the season 2 episodes. There's only been 1 episode so far.
Gotcha.
I think I watched it 3 times.
You don't like that show, right?
I watched it when it came out, and I really liked it, but like it took me a while to get into actually. But then I ended up like loving it. Like the last like few episodes are incredible. And then I was like, all right, I got to rewatch this because I kind of forget. And then even between the rewatch and season 2 coming out, I'm like, it's been kind of a while. I think I need to do another rewatch. So I've seen season 1 of that show 3 times already. It's definitely my favorite scripted show on TV right now, like hands down.
Well, there you go. I'll watch it eventually. I will. You and my dad were talking about that like nonstop at my wedding. You hadn't seen it yet. My dad, of all people, is the one.
No, we were talking about The Offer.
Oh, really? I thought he said you got to check out Severance too.
Maybe, but we chopped it up over The Offer for quite a bit at your wedding. That's a great show. Biggest Emmy snub of all time was what's his name? Matthew Good, who played the Paramount exec. Like,
oh, you're talking about for The Godfather. Oh, that's that show.
Yeah, the best supporting. Well, yeah, it was a miniseries, but
I know. I'm just saying, like people.
It was just the biggest best supporting actor snub I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, bigger snub than the Challengers for best score. For the
that's
Oscars
crazy
this year.
I was gonna say bigger than Eccleston for The Leftovers never getting nominated, because I'm rewatching that now and it's insane. He never got nominated for that show.
Yeah, The Leftovers didn't get any acting noms though. That's so.
And Dowd got a couple, I think, as like guest or something. I think Ann Dowd got a couple.
She was a series regular though, at least the first 2 seasons.
I think she did though. I think she somehow got stuff. I don't know.
Anywho,
yeah, Challengers didn't get
reality
score. Amelia
TV
Perez
only.
got 13. What are you gonna do? We're out. Thank you all so much for listening. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. We will be back again next Thursday. And again, Deal or No Deal Island will be back on Wednesday. So check those out. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.
See ya.